Welcome back, guys, to the Beyond Condition podcast, the voice of bodybuilding. And today's voice is my bodybuilding brother from another mother. Zac Leason is joining us. So thank you, first of all, Zac.
Not a problem, Sarah.
It's so good because actually today is sort of derived from, we have many of a deep chat, don't we, in the gym?
Yeah, lots. We put the world to right and they're not recorded, so we're going to do it today.
For sure. And we've obviously known each other from the scene for a number of years. You've seen me compete and then joining the gym and coming back to the UK, we've sort of connected. And it's been super cool because we pretty much align on everything from the competitor world. And I think that sometimes, people see it on social media and it's made out to be certain things that it's not. And I feel like over the years, it's almost caused a bit of a muddying of the water as to the true bodybuilding that we know it as from when we started out, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so because there's so many federations now and there's so many classes and the rules vary as well. Like, so certain federations are first timers only, then some are first time in this federation, but not this one. And then, like, so you'll see some people and they'll do like 3 first timers classes for a year. But obviously, by the time they get to their second and their third one, they're not a first timer anymore. But like I say, it's just so muddied because it takes a lot away from proper bodybuilding, as we say. And social media and all these federations and all these other classes have just made it so accessible now. And I mean, I'm not trying to talk people out of bodybuilding or anything like that, but the accessibility also comes with a lot of delusion as well. And I think this is what people don't quite understand on what's required or what is needed to be a proper bodybuilder and not an Instagram bodybuilder.
Yeah, for sure. Because we know from our talks, what we've poured into it ourselves. And we've always said, right, this is not us saying we're better than anyone or, anything like that. But the dark places that we've both visited, and a lot of the bodybuilders I speak to that have done this for a number of years and really pursued the ranks, I feel like sometimes it's like, oh, prep's this wonderful thing and you've just got to do a diet. But there is that difference when you are getting, peeled to the bone and you're really pushing yourself through the different ranks that we can go through. It's so different because your whole life, every single minute, as we know, and that's not just prep, that's off season as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, this is where a lot of people say, oh, I don't need a coach. I can do this. I can do that. I can do it all myself. Is off season. And that's great, the amount of people that think that. But nobody who is a beginner to the sport truly understands the point of an off season, that it should be harder than your prep, effectively.
Yeah, because it is, well, particularly for yourself, again, different federations, different individuals. We've spoken about what you're doing and what you need to do in this off season off the back of doing your health phase. It's like you're pushing up to extremes. And we both know Josh, who came on the pod as well. And he's
Yeah.
actually, this is his last year of competing, as you know, because what he'd need to do, he doesn't want to push up to that level anymore, and he just wants to sort of live as a bodybuilder. And I think that is well, it is a hard decision, but it is something that maybe not considered by, people just getting into the sport and thinking, oh, I'll step on stage. It's like the extremes you're going in the off season, as you say, is fucking wild, right?
Yeah, man. Like, as obviously we spoke about before, people think, I want to get big, I want to get big. But to you, how big is big? Because this is a thing. Because the guys like Josh and obviously Nath, who you had on the other week, and now me, I can guarantee you us guys sleep with a CPAP.
Yeah.
People don't see that. I can guarantee you our joints hurt. When you're sat there, I mean, them guys are 300 pound plus in the off season. I'm working towards 300 pound. Do you know what I mean? And this is a thing that people don't understand, that weight is effectively like 2 human beings as average, average humans. It is 2 human beings, and you're carrying that around as one person on one set of knees with one back, and then you've got other sacrifices as well, like mobility. Yeah, obviously, we can do mobility work and this and that, and that's great. But at £300, you are going to be less mobile than, again, an average human being. You know, it has its sacrifices. It really does. And again, yeah, £300 is pushing, the upper limit, the extremes. But everybody else has their own £300 as such. If you're a small kid and you've always been a small kid, your £300 might be £220. Do you know what I mean? And you really might struggle to just get past that and have lack of mobility past that or joint pain past that. It's going to be very individual and person specific. But you have to understand where your limits are and if you want to push past that to be a successful bodybuilder.
Yeah, and as I know from spending time with you, you are literally, you are bodybuilding, you are walking bodybuilding because, everything that you stand for every single day, it's structured around, right now it's a growth phase like we touched on coming off the back of the health phase. But, even when it comes to when we look at socializing, when we look at things that maybe we get invited to things that we don't go to because this is so important, and that's in the growth phase as well. Again, I feel like it is person dependent. I don't want to slam anyone for this, but yes, of course, have some flexibility around off season with social occasions and things you want to do, off plan meals, etc. But I see a lot of people spanking that, and maybe they miss the training session, or they do that too much, and then it becomes this like excessive fat gain, and then they go, oh well, I'm going to prep again, and actually the muscle maturity and the muscle gained is compromised because it's not viewed as what we view as prep. And that causes that almost like confusion as off seasons, this easier space, like you say, don't need a coach, fuck it, I'll do my own thing. But actually, there is merit in having a coach here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, every time you speak to somebody about their off season or a growing phase, if they haven't got a coach or they're a new competitor, ultimately they don't understand what's needed. They just think it's a higher volume of food, a little bit lax. As long as they try and press heavy, or people that do logbook, if they feel that they're beating their numbers in their logbook, they just automatically feel that no matter what else they do that week, good, bad, mediocre, it would all transition to muscle next time on stage. And that's not quite how it works. Obviously, there's a sense of accuracy in that. If you do keep beating your logbook, you are going to gain some tissue, but how much is some tissue, and is that enough for what you need to A, either be competitive, or B, make the adjustments and changes from your last physique, depending on where you were or where you were at.
It is, I think sometimes it can be quite hard to, particularly, as you say, when you're starting out, sometimes quite hard to put, we've often said, put this knowledge into someone's head of how that accuracy still needs to stay. And when you're at this point, where we've done it for years, you make things work around the bodybuilding, right? Like it's like, this is my non-negotiables are because I want this. This is my choice. And then if we were to socialize, we'd still be thinking, have I had my protein? Have I trained? Have I done the things I need
Yeah.
to do? And it's not an issue for us. But I think that a lot of people do have this sort of, and I'm sure you've seen it, they come out of prep, everyone around them sort of like, right, that thing's done now. You can eat with me, you can come out, maybe you sacrifice your sleep routine, all of these things that start to accumulate. And actually, as you say, you diet down again, maybe you look the same, right? Or
Yeah.
worse.
Or worse, yeah. That's the thing, isn't it? Because, like you've just said, sacrificing the sleep routine, or not having a productive off season because you've just thrown everything out the window because you're not like dieting as such anymore. And then you end up regressing, and the work you've put in prior to the prep before, and then this one is kind of just redundant at that point.
What would you say for you in the off season? What motivates you the most? Because you are extremely motivated. And motivation is one of those words, isn't it? It's like, it can be there some days it's not. And doing
Yeah.
it because you want to is what keeps us going. But is there, are you sort of, do you look at where you want to be with other competitors that are where you want to be? Does that motivate you? Or is there certain things that you're like, you get out of bed and you think, fuck, this is what I'm doing,
That's a good question. So, I mean, For me, with motivation, I feel that there's a couple of answers. There's obviously when I'm around like-minded people and we all start talking about where we want to be and what we want to do and this and that. I really enjoy that and I find that motivating. Obviously, our gym is kind of great for that, you know, you guys included as well. So that's a bonus. As well, spending time with guys who are better than me as well. You know, I'm a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of, you know, coming out of your little pond and getting into a big one and being a little fish in a big pond. I like that because I also feel there's always stuff to learn. And if there's stuff to learn, then you can be motivated to be better. And that's kind of where I get the drive constantly of just trying to be better, better than I was last year, better than I was last week, better than I was yesterday, all that cliche. But ultimately, it doesn't matter because I'm still better than I was at any given point. And I think that's kind of what drives me. And a perfect example from that was last year on my prep season. Every show that I did, I felt, and Callum felt as well, we got better and better and better. Whereas, I mean, for a lot of people, you know, when you do sort of 6 shows on a bounce, you kind of start to fade or struggle or whatever. Whereas I think I was just so mentally locked in that physically it didn't matter. We just kept going and we got better. But I will say by the 6th one, that was it. We were done. We were done. You know, that was it.
It's one of
Yeah,
those as well, isn't it? I often describe this to clients and people that I speak to. When you have time between shows, it's such a wild space. Now, if you can make that where it's quite consecutive and there's not too long between, you're sort of, some people would do a peak week into a peak week into a peak week. So you sort of get in the rhythm. But when
yeah,
you have more than sort of, in my own personal experience, more than sort of 3 weeks, you start to feel a little bit weird.
yeah. I think from my qualifier last year up until my last show, there was 11 weeks. Yeah, that's wild.
It
Yeah,
is.
11 weeks with international travel as well. It was crazy.
There's definitely something in the international travel as well. I think that for me, when I finished my longest and most successful season in Mexico, like I think back and I think, how the fuck did I do 13 months of prep and then end that by traveling to Mexico? And I think, whoa, but like you say, I was getting better, and my feedback was sort of try and hold where you are, and it was like, okay, this is fucking cool because it's like, often we get the feedback to go, you need X or you need X, and it was like, okay, so we'll hold it here, and then I'm getting better and better, and I think that for me personally, the opportunity to go to Mexico, if I won that show to qualify and I got there, that drove me so fucking much that I would be going for Team GB that
Yeah.
nothing else mattered. Do you know what I
No,
mean?
it doesn't because you've literally planned your whole year around this one entirety, and you like yourself, winning is the only thing that going through your head. You're not going to turn up. You're not going to get a shiny certificate or a medal.
Mm.
You're going to be the best and compete with the best and show them that you are the best.
It's that I feel as well, again, because we have so many federations and opportunities to compete, and it's really hard for competitors that turn up and they're the only one in their category at times.
Yeah,
However, I've certainly come across people that are like, I'm going to win by default. This is excellent. And for me personally, I'd like to know your thoughts, but I like a lineup. I think, shit, I got to work here. And it's that whole camaraderie and what we're doing there. We're there for ourselves, right? We go in to
yeah,
win. However, it's the experience as well. And I don't know if you have seen that where sort of people do get off on like, well, I've won by default rather than wanting to work, if you know what I mean.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, don't get me wrong. I have won. I think it's like two shows maybe by default.
Hmm.
Just unfortunate, but one thing I say about this is you can only beat who's in front of you on the day,
Hmm. Hmm.
which is true. Um, would I want to rave and shout about it? Not really. Would I like to compete? Yeah, and that's why I do it to compete against not only myself, but other people to be the best. And that's kind of the point of being the best,
Mm.
you know, is that you beat other people,
Yeah,
you know, and for us and the level we're at, it's like, we're not just beating the people at like local Mr. Stoke-on-Trent, it's national, international, worldwide. That's where we're going. Do you know what I mean? That's why we can get away with putting so much time and effort into what we're doing.
I love that you said that we can sort of get away with putting that time into it, because it is like, I don't know. I again, I'd like to know your thoughts. I personally feel like my commitment to bodybuilding as a person, I feel like that's a strong point as a coach as well, because I personally, I feel like that's going to help my clients resonate. And hopefully, if I'm pushing through challenges, we've both had many, many challenges, which I'm sure we'll speak about today. But it's almost like your personal challenges can also inspire clients as well. And that gives them the motivation, because they're hiring us because hopefully, they look up to us, and they feel we can deliver them towards their dreams and guide that path. But I feel like the sacrifices we give, it shows that maybe, when people are facing challenges, Zach and Sarah did it, maybe I can do it, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely, yeah. And like you say, with the commitment to bodybuilding, I feel that from a coach's point of view, you can look at it in two ways. So you have your commitment to bodybuilding, and then you have your commitment to competitive bodybuilding. For me, they are separate things.
Nice.
Um, Perfectly, we'll touch on Josh Maley. Obviously, it was his last year this year. Phenomenal athlete, did fantastically well. His journey now with competitive bodybuilding, he's shut the door on it, but he's always going to be a bodybuilder,
Yeah.
and he will always be dedicated to bodybuilding.
Mhm.
And that is a difference. For example, you know, you and me are still competing, you know, wherever our shows are planned or whatever we're still doing. So we still have both doors that are open right now. So just because we haven't got a show date picked as of such, our competitive bodybuilding drive is still there. But our everyday commitment to bodybuilding and routine and just living our life around progress is there every day,
Yeah.
you know, and that is our commitment to bodybuilding, and that will inspire people because it's like we can do it, but we also have friends, we also run businesses, partners, etc., etc. Whatever you want to do, we do it all.
Mm, mm,
And then there is a specific time of year where we do open that door for competitive bodybuilding, and we are 100% in as well. But I feel that that is a different animal. Yeah, don't get me wrong, our mindset is constant all year, but when you're on prep, it's different.
It is. There's, like you say, opening the door. It's like, I it just unleashes something within me, and I felt it from the start. And I just feel like it's always been for me. When I reflect, it's like, yes, we go in to progress, and we want to win. We want to lift a trophy. That was so far out of my reach when I first started out. I've never done any sports or anything, so I literally was just skin and bones when I first prepped. So it was like, I'm clearly turning up, and actually I'm not competitive. And there's something within, anyone that's listening, if you are on this path, and maybe you're not quite there yet, right? So you're maybe not going to be competitive. Even getting that first prep in the bag, my coach always said to me, I want to see if you can do it. First of all, can
Yeah,
and can you step on the stage, and do you like it? Because so many people do it once, they don't realize what's involved, and it's almost like PTSD. I'm sure you've come across it, and they're like, they fucking hate bodybuilding off the back of doing a prep.
yeah, yeah. I've spoken to people who have been at shows that have told me this. Clients that have then come back to me and said, I only just want a little bit of routine for lifestyle just because I'm out of shape because of the rebound from my last prep. Yeah, and I just think it is a kind of a negative side to it, but then I think a lot of it's how it's handled mentally by the individual. Research is obviously key, I feel, for what's involved in a prep. And again, we mentioned it already about the federations. I also feel that picking your federation based on your current ability will also tell you what's entailed in the prep. because let's be honest, we all know there's an upper echelon of federations and there is a lower tier of federations. And
Mhm.
whichever one you want to compete in is perfectly fine, and I will respect that.
Yeah.
But you can't then turn up looking the same way that you would for a lower federation and get rewarded for it, and then expect to turn up in the exact same shape at a top tier one and think that you can waltz in and win. Because I feel at that point as well, there is a slight difference in commitment,
Mhm.
a slight difference in mindset, and also competitiveness.
I really, really like that. It is certainly something that I feel needs to be talked about openly and honestly, because there's absolutely no shame in when you're starting your journey, finding your way. Like I say, seeing if you can do it, see if you like it, see if it feels like it's worth it for you in your lifestyle, how it affects your relationships and things like this. But you know, when you do start out, the amateur feds, the lower tier as you describe, they're there for a reason because that's your gateway, right? Like it's, you can push enough because again, people do turn up to the lower tier ones and they're maybe not even ready for that. Now, is that the client's fault if they've never competed before? Is that the coach that doesn't really know what they're doing? Like there's sort of again, I feel like people are worried to step on toes at times and it can be difficult when people are put on stage and they're not there, you know?
Yeah. You know, so for example, I was at a show 2 weeks ago, and I was sat with my client backstage, and it was delayed, so we were literally just sat there, just chilling. You know,
Oh,
shock, shock, bodybuilding show that's delayed. Imagine that. Um, and then literally, this lad come backstage with his coach, and it was a first timer show. I will say this: it was a first timer show. So the lad didn't have a clue what he was doing, and also to accompany this, his coach didn't have a clue what he was doing. And you could tell this by the instructions he gave him, the advice he gave him, just not knowing in terms of like, for example, how you would prepare for a show backstage. Just the simple things that you learn over a period of time. And this is a thing, obviously, I've just said it, you learn them over a period of time. This was a first timer's show. And you literally, I would have classed this coach. Well, I wouldn't have classed him as a coach. In essence, he was a pure gym PT
yeah, yeah.
who had taken maybe a friend or a client or a family member, whoever it was, through a what I would call a 10 to 12 week, boot camp.
Yep, yep.
And he's got some abs, and some people have told him, you look great, you should do a bodybuilding show. And that was how this whole sort of scenario played out. Now, you can look at this a couple of ways. The kid, I don't know him obviously, and I never spoke to him after stage. He might have come off stage absolutely delighted and thought that was the best day of his life, and thought, this is for me, this is bodybuilding. I want to see what's next. Is this class right for me? I don't know. Do I need to move up? Do I need to move down? Do I wear shorts? Do I wear trunks? Who knows? You
Mhm.
know, he might have gone and thought, you know what, I've loved this that much. Can I get absolutely inside out peeled? Because the kid two people over from me was unbelievable. Like I've never seen anything like it.
What peeled?
Yeah, yeah. You know,
Oh, it gets me going.
if he looks like that and that's your attitude when you come off stage, unbelievable. You've opened the door, haven't you? And that's where you can drive then and show that commitment. Or, he's done this 12-week boot camp with his pure gym PT and he's gone, yeah, I don't like smelling like mahogany wood. Maybe it's not for me being this dark and prancing around on stage in front of a load of people in my underwear. I felt very uncomfortable. I'm not doing that again. you know. But this is why you do your first timer show. This is why you do your show, because you've got to go there and do it. Like you said, are you made for the prep? Is it made for you? And then this also dictates at what level you're at.
Yeah, and where you're gonna go because as well, I think that again this will come with time. It's quite hard because when I think back to being a first timer, it's wild because this whole new thing is open to you, isn't it? It's like
Yeah.
for me, I don't know about you, but that pressure of standing on stage, like you say, tanned, with hardly any clothes on. That was enough pressure for me to not ever step a foot out of line, and I never have in a prep. For me to turn up every fucking day. I mean, it's a shock to the system, the first one, isn't it? You're thinking,
Oh yeah,
shit,
yeah,
like, is this normal? No, it's not. But I feel like there's this like you're so fucking driven because it's you that steps on that stage. Yes, you have a coach that puts you on there, and there's family members and whatever else. But if you put a foot out of line, you know that, right? Like maybe you don't tell your coach, maybe no one knows, you cheat on your diet or you miss a session, where it is. But for me, that was always enough to scare the shit out of me to not deviate. And when I was around that right at the start, it was just UK BFF basically. So there was sort of no first timers. So I do like this trend of the first timers. But again, like you said at the start, some of the federations you can be a first timer with just them. So two bros,
yeah,
for example, and then PCA you get disqualified if you've ever stepped on stage, and still
yeah.
people still get confused by that, don't they?
Yeah, and that's kind of a little bit of a grey area, isn't it? It is a grey area because for some people it's an unfair advantage if you have been through the process of, the registration, the tanning, the backstage protocol, all of that. Because if you've not been through it before and you've got nobody with you, it can be quite stressful, you know. So this is the thing: if you've been through it before, but you're doing a first timers show, and it's not your first time, it does give you an edge, and we all know how stress can affect your look, especially through peak week and on the day. So it is an unfair advantage to an extent.
And they PCA call people out, don't they, on
They
social
do, and I think that's very good, especially when they've got coaches as well. When they've got coaches who've entered them for them shows and they know that they've already done a show before, then they call them out, and good, and so they should,
media? Yeah,
because 9 times out of 10, the coach is an experienced competitor. So they should know this. It's not like they're just a casual average Joe and they've said to the mate, oh, do this show, it'll be sound.
yeah. And I also feel like as well, there was one show I went to and someone got called out after. He won the first timers and they found out he'd competed before. So he got disqualified and the basically the title was taken. But then what I was thinking was the person that came second, that was their only opportunity to ever do a first timer show and come first. And they've
Yeah,
missed that. I was
yeah,
really like, fuck, you know?
yeah. I mean, and if we're honest as well, that might be their only time they may ever win. So you've taken that away from them of being the last person standing on stage, because it's such a surreal feeling. The last person standing on stage, you with your photo, and they're like, 2 photos, please, sir. And you've got this big grin ear to ear, and you're hitting your best shots, and you're like, yeah, I've done it, this is me.
I know it
But I
is.
never get that feeling now. And I
Yeah,
think it really is a sad state of affairs, really.
yeah,
That's obviously one thing about cheating in bodybuilding that is very unfair.
yeah, yeah.
There's very few rules in bodybuilding, but getting
Stick.
cheated by that is not fair. Is not cool.
And it that transfers into, like you say, rules. I haven't really spoken about this on the pod before actually, but it's just made me think when we look at, of course, untested and tested. So naturally, if you're natural, it makes sense to pursue the natural divisions. However, there
True.
are people that are natural that do the untested feds as well, and I guess they sort of maybe manage their expectations with their coach, etc. But there has been some changes into what's on the list. So the first time I saw the natural federation lists of what you're allowed to have and what you're not allowed to have, I'm like, whoa, this is an encyclopedia of everything you're not allowed to have. And that includes some pre-workouts and things, right? So
Yeah.
again, it's like if you're first getting into it, you might not know that. And then there's the crossover of some natty athletes use L-carnitine, and there are some things that they use, but they're not allowed to use other things, and that can sometimes again cause a bit of confusion into the untested and the tested. Now, hopefully, the coach is working this out for you if you're listening and thinking, what?
Yeah, definitely.
But it is,
Definitely.
even the thought of a pre, you could have a pre-workout and that could be on the ban list is like shit, this is quite hard to, take all of that in.
Which is wild, isn't it? Because you think you may have just taken a single serving from the gym where you've gone to train with your friends. That's wild. Or on the complete enough opposite other end, you could be at home injecting growth hormone or Lantus or Nova Rapid, but still thinking because it's not an anabolic steroid that you're still natural, you know. And it's the same with the peptides now as well, you know. Obviously, they're a big thing at the moment, aren't they? That everybody's sort of using. That some are WADA banned and some aren't. So again, that's another grey area, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Like you say, peptides are certainly, I feel like probably over the last maybe 2 years, a bit more on the peripheral, and even like the thought processes like we've spoken about using BPC for injuries and
Yeah,
healing and things like this. Obviously there's now oral, which you can use for GI. Like there's
yeah,
extensions there, and we could actually talk about GI as a gateway there because, of
yeah,
course, again, does this come with experience? Probably yes. It's so much more on the peripheral as coaches and as athletes as to the effects that we get over time of competing. Like I can't tolerate a large variety of foods because of what I've done for year on year on year by, having such a small amount of selection of food in preps. I've then, it's like intolerances, sensitivities. I'm not going to say I'm like gluten intolerant or anything because I'm not, but there's certain foods I can't tolerate. Do you find that yourself?
um, I'm going to say no because I'm okay eating. So a lot of off-plan meals or on holiday, I'm always fine with. I think a lot of my issues come from predominantly in my off season of trying to force food. That's mainly where I get my issues, causing GI, a little bit of distension, overworking, slowed down digestion, things like that. So that's kind of more my issue is food volume as such rather than food choices.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess there will be that potential slight difference with how my calories go so low as a bikini competitor at times, particularly in the last prep. It was pretty diabolical. However, I'm here for it, but
Yeah,
it meant very little food per day, and I think that sometimes we have to then see that this is where we say, bodybuilding is an extreme. Bodybuilding is something where you can get backlash because, as we both described there, both of us have experienced things with GI that are off the back of the extreme nature of competing and pushing it to the levels that we choose to. Again, this is something that if you're not educating your clients on this, you wouldn't really know, right? Like, it's just like, what's GI?
yeah. And I think, to be fair, I think it's been spoken about a lot. A lot of influencers use it as a marketing technique nowadays. Especially driven at sort of females with bloating and PCOS and PMS around that sort of time. They're like, oh, your GI is stressed. Yeah, your GI is stressed. Well, what does that mean? Well,
Yeah.
why is it stressed? You know, like there could be 101 reasons to it. Every person is individually different. As we've just said, there's two completely opposite ends of the scale. You have issues because you were on so minimal food, and I have issues because I was on effectively too much food for my body to handle. So where are you at? It's all right using GI as a marketing tool nowadays, but like you say, the education on it is very low.
Yeah, and even the food selection and that transferring as well. I was literally having a conversation the other day about post show. Now, we've all been there where we've eaten a hell of a lot after a show.
Yeah,
Particularly again, you sort of in your first few seasons, it's a bit overwhelming at times, and the people around you, etc. And we learn. But when you're repopulating your gut during that period of time, this is what I try and say to people. And I actually referenced it as, this is me. I'm going to be very boring right now. But when you talk about the reverse out, when you repopulate your gut, if you spank that for a long period of time, you can for sure get a backlash and you can almost scupper the start of your growth phase, right?
yeah, I've been there. I've done that. Oh, what year was it? What year are we in now? 24. I think it must have been the back end of the 21-22 season. I'd won a couple shows, won the British, still dieted for another 3 or 4 days after, and did a shoot with Chris Bailey.
Oh, okay, nice.
And it was great. It was fantastic. And then that was it. I was done. And I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do now? Like, I've achieved pretty much nearly everything I wanted to do. I've won multiple shows. I've won a British. I've shot with Chris Bailey. I've got them old school Flex magazine pictures. I'm going for a fucking burger and a milkshake.
Yeah.
And that burger and that milkshake did not stop there.
Mm.
Yeah. So yeah, so there was that, and I kept eating and eating and eating. I will say that part of my rebound was also from diuretics from the British and Chris's shoot as well. So that didn't help, but I gained about 40 pounds in about 2 to 3 days.
Fucking hell.
Yeah, that's wild. It got that bad, Sarah. Yeah, I couldn't get up off the floor. Like I was laying on the floor, and my back was just pulsing. My back was just pulsing. My arms were like this. I was like, "Oh my God, I hurt so much." Like
Mum.
it was literally, yeah. My ankles had swelled up. My hands, my fingers, my jaw, everything just swelled up. Like it was a combination of things. Obviously, excess glucose, the sodium rebound, the diuretics, the water, everything I tell people not to do.
You've done it.
Yeah, I just done it. And it was pretty wild. It wasn't great. So like I say, I'd literally got down to my lowest weight I'd been at in years while I was competing, and then I'd gained 40 pounds again in effectively 3 days, 4 days. So at this point, I was with Callum, and it was like, right, well, we've got to maintain like maintenance food when I could actually move again, because that took me another week or two to just like get my joints back to normal. Uh,
Really?
and then I had to diet down again,
Yeah,
because my off season was pointless because I was fatter than I was before I started prep.
yeah.
Like literally, it was crazy. So, you like you've just said, it just ruins your off season post show, it ruins your next phase. You know,
It's like a wild beast, isn't it? The hunger.
oh yeah, and I just think it was poorly controlled by myself mentally.
Yep.
It was poorly controlled by me post shoot. Post show was okay because I think I knew I had the shoot, and then after that, because I'd never rebounded properly, or I'd never reversed properly as
Yep.
such, with previous coaches and stuff, or even like before. So I had no goals, nothing set, and I just kind of like shut down,
Yep. Yep.
you know. And I just had sort of like, what do I do now?
Mhm,
I don't
mhm.
know. So I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to eat because I've got 3 4 hours back to my day because I'm not doing double cardio or posing sessions, or I haven't got to train for an hour and a half every day. And I gained all that time back, and I ended up just sat there eating and watching Netflix and
Mm.
whatever. And I think that was just poor management on my side. Do you know what I mean? And these are things that you look at and go, okay, right, you know, we need to do better.
Why did it happen? What happened? How can I learn? As we've always, said throughout this pod already, it's about
Yeah,
learning. And I think that this is where it's when we talk about these things, it's never, as I've touched on, it's never like, being ignorant or we're better or whatever. It's like we've been in these fucking really bad places. So we don't want you guys listening to go there. If maybe, if someone heard you say that now and they're listening, it's like maybe they won't go as far and they can rein it in a bit more. And that helps that one person to learn a bit from what you've just said. Because the thing is with the insatiable hunger, and it can be that you're very close with your coach, but you get taken. And as your example is perfect because you won loads of shows, right? You won the British. So it's not even that you didn't place, you didn't win, and you did it through that. It's just like it's the end of the road for that chapter, and that's very difficult, isn't it?
yeah, because I think you get to the point, and like for me, then that was kind of like uh, for the level of my physique that I was at that point. that was kind of all I knew that I could achieve at that level.
Right,
You
yeah.
know, I couldn't have opened a door to go pro because it was laughable. It was pointless. You know, and where do you go after winning that? Like, what do you do? Because it was like it was a two bros British as well, so it's like, you know, you don't where do you go from there at that point? Because your only next one up is to, you know, start winning bigger international shows and then try and get your card. But I just wasn't at that level at that time in 21,
Mm.
you know, 21, 22. So it's like, well, where do you go? And I think it was just, that was me done. And that's all I thought in my head is, oh, I'm done now. I'll just eat and get back to off season. But like I've just said, because I'd never reversed out of a prep or a diet properly or successfully, I think because I'll shed a little bit more light on this. So most other preps I'd done up until 21, 22 had predominantly probably finished with injury rather than, oh, right, season's over, next steps now. So the injury had always taken me out or not allowed me to perform as well as I should have done or could have done.
Okay.
So once I was injured, like, right, okay, well, prep's over. I can't train because of X, Y, and Z injury.
Mhm.
So I'm just going to sit here and wait till I'm better. You know, do my rehab, see my physio, whatever, my osteopath, whatever is the case. And again, a lot of my injuries were 3 4 months at a period of time. So you go through that phase after prep where you can't do anything that you wanted to do, or you can't do anything that you should be doing. So I'd never, like I said, I've never reversed properly. And then when I got to my season at 21 and 22, and I'd won shows and I'd won my British and I wasn't injured, it was kind of like new ground.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, like where do you go from there? And I just thought, well, I'm going to go and eat.
yeah, yeah.
And like I say, that was it. It wasn't even the wrong choice. It was just a combination of things that had just never happened before. You know, after, like I say, obviously using the diuretics between the British to the shoot, eating post shoot, and then thinking, all right, well, okay, I can just kind of
Keep
drop
doing.
off a little bit and relax a little bit. And obviously that wasn't the idea. But then we look at last year, for example, I did my 6 shows, the international shows, whatever, had probably my best season to date. And then I looked at it and thought, well, my last show was November 3rd or 4th anyway. And I was 4 pound heavier January 1st.
Very different then.
Very different. Yeah. We just leveled. We just stayed where we were November and December,
Mm.
you know, and yeah, very different, very different. And then that allowed me to come into this phase, you know, this year with much more ability, much more scope for improvement, a lot more room. And then yeah, that's why we're able to just kind of keep going. And my body composition at this weight now is light and day between where I started prep, you know, the prior year.
Do you feel like almost that such bad experience? Because I feel like when I've been there, I don't want to go there again.
Yeah. So I mean, you know, obviously it was kind of heavy edema as well as the food bloat. If anybody's experienced it, like just off and on a flight or anything, or do you have had diuretic issues, then it hurts and it hurts a lot, you know, and it's not something that you really want to go through again. Also, the weeks and weeks and weeks of trying to reverse it
Mm.
and control the issue. Again, something that you don't want to go through again because, you know, let's say it took me 6 weeks, 6 weeks to get out of it,
Mm. Mm.
2 months. Well, there's your 2 month rebound gone.
When you can capitalize, can't you?
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So that either is 2 months off your off season for your next year, or it's delayed it.
Mm. Mm.
So if it's delayed it, you can't get that back. You know, this is something that you need to learn with mistakes within bodybuilding.
Mm. Mm.
It's okay to make mistakes, learn from them. because you can never get that time back.
Yeah. You get a little bit better each time. I certainly feel like the more you do it, it's like I've got a little bit more control this time. I've got a little bit more control. But also it's like if something if you notice that something's maybe a trigger for you, and whether that's post show, whether that's in a prep, whatever part you're in, if there's something that you know is a trigger, whether that's an external pressure, or that there's no goal after that can trigger you to do certain things, it's like, so what do I do this time round to negate that trigger? So is it that you have a goal straight away? Is it that you actually gain support from someone close to you and you say, look, last time I fucked it, I really need some help this time. I know I'm going to probably go towards this, which I don't want to be doing. Help me. But that's quite hard if you are, of a competitive mindset, because it's quite hard to ask for help, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I feel that sometimes because you see yourself as a competitor and you compete against yourself, you don't want to take people's sort of handouts per se. Like that sounds really negative, but it's not.
It's in our own mind, isn't it?
Yes, your mindset, it's within you, it's within yourself, and it's why a lot of people are competitive or are so competitive because they don't want help off other people because they want to do it themselves.
I wonder as well, it's like yourself, a lot of people at the gym are like, Zach's a fucking tank, he's massive, and you are. Check out the Instagram if you need to see Zach's physique. But again, it's like, I feel like, and Matt's been through this, you're a man, you're a heavily muscled male, and you're seen as this person to people. Like, there's going to be people that follow you, Zach, that are going to really aspire to be more like you, to look more like you. And we forget that sometimes when we're in a place of influence, that actually people are like, wow, this person is, someone that inspires me. And sometimes it's quite hard to then be vulnerable in that scenario, because you're like, there are people sort of looking up to you, and as a male, I think maybe that's sometimes harder in some respects, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think definitely. I think it's a big stigma, isn't it, to be vulnerable as a man. It's definitely come to light a lot more within the last probably 18 months, I'd say. It's definitely out there now. There's a lot of things, isn't there? There's Men's United and there's Men's Help. Even what's it called? The Lee Rigby Foundation as well. They do a lot for sort of mental health. Um, and I think being vulnerable is difficult for men in general, but then also from the psychotic effects of PEDs as well, that can also come down to it a lot, because are you willing to accept how they affect you or if they affect you? That's another thing because that might make you potentially more vulnerable. And there'll be obviously times, especially if you don't know what you're doing or you're not fully in control of cycles, where your estrogen does rise up and you do feel low, depressed, and specifically very, very much vulnerable, at, you know, just, just because you've seen a cat cross the road, who knows? Do you know what I mean? That's it, yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to sometimes actually, I think, communicate that, because you'll know people, I know people that do a cycle, they come off whatever it is, and Tren is a common one, right? Like, we have a laugh and we're like, oh, because having a bit of banter around it and stuff, when we know about PEDs, it's takes the edge off a little bit, but that's one that's notorious, right? So then a lot of people do it, they come off it and they go, fucking hell, like, oh, like, I've heard of people getting divorced and shit, and you're like, bloody hell, from taking Tren. But
Yeah, absolutely.
the stories, and you want to shag everyone and everything else, but like you touched on, if you don't know about certain compounds, like, you can almost be in this mindset that you don't really know, is you're maybe not conscious of how much you've changed. And then if your partner doesn't know what's going on, they're thinking, fucking, we're shagging 5 times a day. What the hell's going on? And it's like, actually, me and Matt laugh about it. It's like, if you know about it between you and stuff, you can sort of communicate it. But I think that sometimes, again, this adds to the isolation of the people around you thinking, what is going on with this person?
Yeah, definitely, because there can be mood swings, there can be obviously sex drive increases, there can be sex drive decreases, all sorts. And to be fair, yeah, obviously PEDs is a big one, especially Trent, but then also diet and just fatigue, mentally, emotionally, physically, whatever you're going through. Bodybuilding it can be a cannonball, you know. One of the ways I used to describe it to my friends was it's a glass case of emotion, and it could crack at any time, at any part of your journey. One thing could just go crack, done, and it could be the smallest thing or it could be the biggest thing like World War III. Who knows? But it's how you deal with it, and each person deals with things differently.
Yeah, and it is so true, because when I look back as well in previous relationships, like, I mean, I didn't help scenarios, even though they weren't the right relationship. I could be a real fucker at times because, like you just said there, even diet fatigue, and this is being natty, I don't know what I would have been like to live with, because I was so driven. And now it's different because I'm still just as driven, but I communicate with Matt, right? Before I was like, I don't want to communicate with this person. I don't like this person. We're just together. And that then added to the wedge that it wasn't just him, it was me as well. And bodybuilding gave me that sort of focus and purpose. And like I said, I don't know what I would have been like to live with, but I think that sometimes you have to acknowledge that. And it might be that partnerships don't work out because that person isn't invested in enough in what you view as, if bodybuilding is your everything, maybe that person's like, hello, and they don't understand it enough. And then you've got to part ways, and that's difficult as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, yeah, I've been there. I've seen it personally and with friends. So it is a difficult one, bodybuilding. It isn't for everybody's partner. But what it does do, though, for when you are doing it and you are competing, it is, I think a lifeline is a strong way to put it, because
I like that.
it is and it isn't. Because, it's funny, I said to somebody yesterday when they asked what I was doing, I said, oh, I'm watching the football. And they went, oh, that's gay. And I said, well, there's two things that will never leave me, and that's Arsenal and bodybuilding. And I stand by that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, and they're two things that will always be there, no matter what. And they're two things that make me happy, and they're two things that I spend my time on, spend my money on, and invest in, and they'll always be there. And that's just a matter of a fact. Do you know what I mean? No matter what, whatever day of the week it is, whatever time of the day, whatever year it is, for me, Arsenal and bodybuilding will always be there. You know, and people can't give you that guarantee. You never know what's going to happen. I mean, really morbid, but somebody might die, then they're not there for you. Or they might just go, your lifestyle's not for me. I don't want to be with a bodybuilder. I don't want to be so involved in bodybuilding, and then they leave. And you can't fault them for that, because that's their own choice, and that's why, that's their decision at the end of the day. And that's why I think, I said lifeline is a little bit of a stretch, but it can be for some people, because, as we started the conversation off with, bodybuilding's all or nothing for people like us.
It is. It's literally, and this is where, again, I don't like to get too sort of when I spoke about this on a pod yesterday. When I see people bashing bodybuilding, and this would be something good for us to talk about as well from your perspective, when people we've spoken about, do one prep and drop out of it, or I see coaches that say bodybuilding's a walking food disorder, or, you shouldn't be getting that lean, etc., etc. I try and take a step back before I share posts and stuff about it, because it's like if someone's attacking bodybuilding, it's like they're attacking me personally. And I start to, and what I see people pour into bodybuilding, like yourself, when we have our conversations, it is our literal everything. I know people that are fucking, the lengths we go to in prep, right? People are literally putting their life on the line, like you say, lifeline, but putting your life on the line for a prep to pursue this. And then you get people that bash it, and they say all these things. I don't know if you take it as a personal attack as well. I'm sure you probably do to a certain degree, but it's quite hard for me when people are just bashing it. And also, if I don't know if you see this, coaches that say, I can save you from bodybuilding. You shouldn't be tracking your food. You should be eating intuitively. You're actually almost doing the opposite to this person and almost abusing their trust in a different way, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely, yeah. I think you're right. When I see people bash bodybuilding, it really used to bother me. I used to take it so personally. And then this is going to sound really bad now, but I don't care because it is what it is. When people bash bodybuilding, it's genuinely because they either look shit or they were shit at it. And it's that simple because you can't find somebody that goes, yeah, bodybuilding's a load of shit. You shouldn't do it because it's bad for you or this or that. Well, give me 5 reasons why it's bad for me if you don't know about it. Well, you don't. You don't know about it, so you can't give me 5 reasons. The reason is you took a load of gear because your mate told you to. You looked all right in Ibiza. You got on stage and you come dead last, and you look shit compared to the people that took it seriously. And that's how your life's gone. And then because you were number one at fucking Ibiza pool party, and you pulled loads of girls because you had some abs, and everybody filled your head with shit. You've gone and got on stage. You got dead last. People laughed at you. It's hurt your ego. So that's now why you feel you've got to dig out bodybuilding and bodybuilders because they actually take it seriously and they're better than you. That's genuinely how I see it for the majority of time because 9 times out of 10, the people that I've seen that dig out bodybuilding that are that open about digging it out, that's kind of their history. And so they tell people not to do it, not to do it. You shouldn't be tracking food. You shouldn't like basically what you've said. Effectively, you should be a fat slob and you should be happy. There's no need for you to be on stage. There's no need for you to do this and do that. But then it's also so they can make money from it as well.
This is what I see. Yeah, it
Yeah.
is.
It's
Yeah,
also a marketing ploy because let's be honest, is it easy to do 2 hours of cardio a day, train, pose, and live off 1,000 calories? No, it's not.
no, it's not.
Is that an ideal situation? No, it's not, but needs must at the end of the day to be at a certain level. Is it easy to sit at home, eat a bag of crisps, drink a pint of milk, watch Coronation Street or EastEnders, and go, you know what? I've hit 10,000 steps today, so I deserve a cup of tea with sugar. Yeah, that is easy. And that's the dream that they're selling you. Are you going to feel happy doing that every day for 6 months when you go on holiday? Probably not. But you've had an easy time getting there, so you're happy about it. And that's where your difference is. You'll see these guys that are slating bodybuilding or telling you that you can do 10K steps a day and not track your food and do this and do that and be happy. Yeah, you probably can be happy. But are you going to look good? Probably not.
I do wonder as well the psychological implications of once you've touched stage lean, we know it's very addictive. It's like although you're fucked, like you know, where it's hard to describe in words, isn't it, Zach? When you get peeled out your mind, like,
Yeah.
but I don't know about you, I fucking get off on it so much that
I love it.
it's honestly like this is fucking sick, and I'm like wear this shit like a badge of honor, like
Yeah, 100.
it, it's particularly when you are getting to that true, pill to the eyeballs, we call it. It is wild, and like I say, it is addictive. Now, is it healthy? Absolutely not.
Oh, no.
However, once you've been there, or even to the best lean you've ever been, so maybe you've been on a weightless journey, right? And you're leaner than you ever thought possible. I sometimes think, how would that then feel when you do get to that 6 month point and you're so far away from that you've gone completely the opposite way because this coach is feeding you this bullshit and taking your money and saying you don't need to worry about these things. I also think there's a psychological, abuse of trust there to think, is it because that coach has had a bad experience with bodybuilding that they're almost bringing these people into almost like a cult? I see this type of stuff, and it's quite wild when you see it from an actual educated sort of position. You think, whoa, this is wild.
Yeah, definitely, because their whole marketing strategy is like um, happiness and function, isn't it?
Yeah.
Rather than aesthetics. But let's be honest. Nobody cares how functional you are on a picture, do they? You know, nobody cares how functional you are when you're taking your clothes off with your partner. It's how
Yeah.
you look, isn't it? It's aesthetics, how you look and how you feel, you know. So yeah, okay, well, not everybody needs to be on stage, not everybody needs to try and be the next Mr. Olympia. But if you can mentally lock in to a bodybuilding lifestyle as such, you're going to get results better than other people.
Yeah.
And that is a fact because the best bodybuilders in the world, you know, grow muscle and lose fat at the same time, you know, and they have more muscle than 90% of the people on the planet, like other athletes anyway. And they have less fat. And yeah, okay, it's not for everybody. But the point is, them two things go hand in hand. More muscle, less fat. And when they go hand in hand, when you scale that right down to an average Joe, would you like more muscle and less fat? If we asked everybody we walk past on the street in the next 10 days, every single person will say yes.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And that's what it comes down to, you know. Yeah, you know, like I've just said, we appreciate not everybody wants to be the next best Mr. Olympia or competitive bodybuilder. But ultimately, every person would like a little bit more muscle and a little bit less fat. They don't even have to be toned or lean or ripped or shredded. But from where they are right now, if you gave somebody, you know, I'll give you an extra 4 or 5 pound of muscle and I'll take 4 or 5 pound of fat off you, you've changed their whole physique, you've changed their whole confidence, you've changed how they look, how they hold themselves, you know, the clothes they'd wear, everything about them you changed just by making that slight aesthetic change. But you can't do that without the mindset and the protocols of bodybuilding.
I love that because this is, again, this is what I preach with my lifestyle clients. They've got absolutely no desire to step on stage. And when I first speak with them, I don't know if you have this, but when I first take people on, they're like, I just need to clarify, I don't want to do that thing that you do. And I'm like,
Yeah,
you don't need to do it. But I've got lifestyle clients that have pursued their professional work life. Like you said, you hold yourself different, that have had several promotions over years of working with them because they're a different person from the fundamentals of what bodybuilding offers. And it gives them
absolutely.
purpose. You know, you know what it's like when you get a client say, fucking hell, I feel really good in myself. And you know that they might have never ever done anything like this before. And I say, you're a bodybuilder. You don't have to step on stage for this. And that again is where, right back to our first conversations, you do not need to step on stage to validate this, guys. Like, you can have passion for this. You can get out of bed every day and think, this is sick. I've got my tick list to do. I'm going to train. I'm going to give back to myself. And you can do the whole part. And I love how you've said that. You can do the whole bodybuilding, but you don't have to go to those extremes that then make it, of course, you know, difficult on the health and everything that
Yeah.
comes with it. And that gets taken away again by social media or what maybe even coaches think you should do or whatever it may be. That actually there's joy in the purpose, right?
Yeah, and well, you know, you're one of the biggest advocates I know about it. You love what we do,
Thank
so
you.
that is the joy and the purpose. You love what we do. Every day we do it. You know, it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's doing your steps, doing your cardio, cooking your meal prep, eating your food, training, you know, having these sorts of conversations. Everything about it, you love it. So that's why you do it.
Yeah.
And that for you, that makes you a better person, you know. And as we said at the beginning, again, right now we haven't got a date set for the competitive side of it, but every day we get up and every night we go to bed, we live bodybuilding.
I love that. You're getting me in the feels now, Zach.
You know how we do.
It is for me, and you know, again, this is why we have a connection. It's like when people see that in us, you know, and we see that in each other, it's very cathartic, isn't it? Because it is a very solo endeavor at times. Like sometimes you think, I wish I could meet more people that are like me, because it's, you know, there's people that are trying to try in their best to do this, but for us, it's like we almost don't have to try, right? And again, it's not saying that we're better or anything like that, but I wish that many people could reach this point where they literally see the joy and the purpose. And this is fucking so cool. Like every time we see each other, we're like, bodybuilding is the best because it is, it's like the
Yeah,
coolest thing ever. And back to that sort of conversation of, when people bash it, I'm glad you said as well, you're like, it is what it is, because that's what I'm trying to get more towards. I find this like I'm trying to protect the community, and I'm like, don't bash bodybuilding. But again, opinions, right? And I'm sure you've had many opinions put on you over your time.
yeah, fucking hell. Yeah, I don't want to hear half of them.
It
But no,
is.
you're right. You're right. I think the reason for me and why I am so blasé about it at the moment is because, like you just said, there's joy in the purpose. I'm happy doing what I'm doing,
Yeah.
and that is bodybuilding. You can line 100 people up in front of me, and they can all tell me bodybuilding shit, and they can all tell me it's never going to get me anywhere, and they can all tell me that I should give up. But the thing is, it makes me happy, so I'm still going to do it today, and I'm still going to do it tomorrow. And I think that's where I'm at now, with the point of I don't really care so much of that opinion anymore. It used to really, really annoy me, especially like, for example, when I used to work at Tesco, I was a manager at Tesco.
Oh,
Uh,
were you?
I was, yeah. And I'd done, I think it was like 2 or 3 shows at this point. And this older manager, this like older woman, started saying to me, "Well, you're all going to turn to fat when you're older. As soon as you get to 40, you're just going to be fat and this and that, rah 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 rah." And then she was like, "You never get anything from bodybuilding. Like, I don't know why you do it. You're spending all this time in the gym. It never gets you anywhere. Rah rah rah." And that's all I used to hear all the time. And I just thought to myself, like, I wish you'd just shut up, to be honest with you, because you don't know what you're talking about. Like, yeah, that might be your opinion on it, but I don't want to stand outside a pub and smoke 10 fags a night. Do you know what I mean? So you get to that point, I just thought to myself, that was kind of a turning point for me.
Mm,
Uh, and it was also one of the reasons I left as well,
yeah.
because I just couldn't be asked to deal with that shit every day. Like I've just said, I wanted to do what makes me happy and do it for me, you know. So I was faced with many negative opinions for years, years, and again they were all by people who didn't understand bodybuilding.
Mm. Very relevant point. It's that sometimes jealousy, sometimes not, like literally not understand what it is. But I think we can actually use this as fuel when we're with a strong mindset. At times it can really bring you down. And for sure, like you say, if 100 people said to me you shouldn't do bodybuilding, it'd probably make me want to do it more, right? Because it's
Yeah,
like, fuck you, 100 fuck yous, because it's what brings our passion out. It's what we love every single day, like you say. But when you, in the early days, when you did have these sort of opinions and external pressure, and I'm sure you've had why are you eating that and this type of stuff, what would you like if someone's listening and they're just getting into bodybuilding, and maybe in their workplace, your example, right, someone keeps saying to them, "Oh, with the food, what you look like, etc." What would you say would be a bit of an advice, knowing what you know now? Because that can be quite hard to be assertive, can't it? Like now, I'm like, look, you do what you're doing, I'll do what I'm doing. But before, it would be sometimes difficult.
so especially for, say, somebody who's never competed before, or somebody who is just on a weight loss journey, and somebody sort of pecking them all the time. Oh, why are you eating out of Tupperware? Why are you only eating salad? Or have one biscuit at Rona. Oh, here, I brought in a cake from home. All that sort of stuff. You know what I mean. We've all been there.
For
Everybody has.
sure.
I think the biggest thing is not to reply. It's to listen to what they've said and say, does that align with my goal? Does that take me any closer to my goal? 9 times out of 10, the answer is no, because that's why you've got your prepped meal in front of you, or you've got your shake, or that's why at this period of time in the day you're not eating, or whatever it may be. So whatever they've said to you is of why you eating that, or here's a biscuit, here's a cake, or here's some sugar in your tea, or whatever. When that doesn't align to your goal, just say no, thank you.
Mm, yeah.
I'm doing this for me. And I think that's where a lot of the driving force will come from. When you understand that you're doing it for you, or, we'll go on to the bigger question of why. Why are you doing it? What is your why?
Yeah.
Because when clients sign up with me, I always ask them why. What is your why? Why do you want to bodybuild? Why do you want to compete? Why do you want to lose weight? Why do you want to do this 12-week fat loss phase? Because there's always going to be a point within that 12, 20, 30 weeks where either A, somebody of importance in your life will question it, or you, or where there will be a day where you wake up and go, fuck me, gotta do this today, or I've got to do that again. For a lot of people, it's generally leg
Yeah.
day. But we,
Fucking leg day. No.
but your why, you have to look inside yourself and explain that why. You have to be able to explain that why to somebody else, and they go, oh, "Okay, you,
Yeah.
you you do you." Sorry, or you have to think about that why and go, "I'm gonna get my ass up out of bed today. And I'm gonna go to the gym before I've got to go to work. I'm gonna go to the gym after I've been to work. I'm gonna go to the gym after I've put the kids down to bed because I need to for my why. This is why I'm doing it for me, or why I'm doing it for XYZ reason, whatever it is. That why that is so important to you that other people's opinions and your mental or physical state can't stop you achieving what you're doing because your why is so important. Because if your why isn't that important, then it's kind of pretty shit because you're going to give up.
Yeah. Yeah. You
You
might
know,
get away.
like for example, I've had clients in the past that have done okay, and then they've changed their why and they've done better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But then on the flip side to that, I've had clients that have started off really well because their why, their fire has been burning really big inside of them. And then when that fire dies out a little bit, because that why is not bulletproof,
Yeah.
because that why effectively was a life issue. That was your why.
Yeah.
And then when you get past that life issue and start a new chapter in your life, that why is not the same.
Mm,
So then
mm.
you're no longer as dedicated to the cause and as to you as you once were.
Yeah. You get a new relationship or something, isn't it?
Exactly that. Yeah. You've just gone through a bad breakup. So your why is, oh my God, I'm going to lose loads of weight. I'm going to show him or show her, because I got comfortable in that period of time I was with that partner. I'm going to show them, and that's my why. And then you lose a little bit of weight and you look all sexy and shit, and you meet somebody else. That why kind of goes out. That
Fish.
fire goes out.
Mm, mm.
But then why do you settle for where you still are?
Why
Are you
not?
happy with that? Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
And then this is why I keep saying that your why needs to be important,
Yeah.
because you will carry on from this example that you're looking all sexy and shit, and you're lying in bed with your new partner, and it's leg day. Do you get up and do you go and train legs to continue looking so sexy and shit?
Or do
Or
you still sex?
yeah, that's it. Yeah, do you have sex and stay in bed, then order a Macca's?
Yeah.
Like, why is your choice? Do you know what I mean? Because all these choices are going to have consequences later down the line.
Yeah, for
You
sure. I
know,
do. I feel as well. It's a funny one for me. I've always felt like when I was first with my previous husband, way back when I got into bodybuilding, I was with him, and he sort of kept saying like, "Oh, should we get a Chinese and things?" And obviously going into my first prep, I'm like, "Absolutely not! Like, I can't do that. It's not my plan." And he was, I think, probably a bit of a feeder and whatever. But it's like I want to look better for you. I don't want to look worse. Like, and
yeah,
even in off season, it's like there's still this conscious effort to, for me personally, I want to maintain a level of body composition. I don't want to get just, really fluffy or whatever we want to talk about. I still want to see some lines, etc. There's a point where that obviously, gets harder as you're pushing up. However, I don't want to look intentfully worse or just drop the ball. If anything, I want my partner to think, yeah, fucking hell, she's fire. Like,
yeah,
again, I don't know if people share that, but it's like for me as well. If I'm looking good and I feel good in myself, my partner's happy, that intimacy is there. Like, I'm not worried he's going to go off and stuff like this as well. So it's complex more than just like, you know, I think I'll settle here, like you say.
That's it, isn't it? So, and that's why you need to have a good reason to embark on any of the journeys you're doing, not just specifically bodybuilding, like, weight loss, muscle gain, whatever it is you want to do. You've got to have a good reason, because otherwise you kind of run out of steam.
Mm.
And when you run out of steam, it's very hard to get going again.
Especially in the prep, isn't it? Like, and this is where there is that argument of, you know, sometimes people come to me and say, I want to do a prep. And when you actually dig down on their work life and everything, their commitments, maybe they have children, things like this.
Yeah,
Actually, it's like, yeah, we can do it. For sure we can do it. But this is what the tail end may look like. Obviously, we can never guarantee. You know, you could get a hyper responder and they say I'm quite high calories, but generally speaking, it's like at this point, your work performance may suffer. Your feet might be bleeding. You know, all these like extreme.
yeah,
And, you know, you're going to have to sacrifice potentially time with your children, things like this. And I always say, and I'm sure you're the same, this is not me saying you shouldn't do it. This is not me being negative, but this is the reality of what it's going to look like, rather than partway through, people stop, because as the deficit gets bigger, guess what? It's more time maybe doing expenditure. It's, you know, sticking to your food plan. It's all of these things. And that's when I think some people would be better doing, you know, a diet, maybe quite a harsh diet, but not maybe, you know, like a stage prep, if you know what I mean.
absolutely. Yeah. And that's basically what separates bodybuilding from competitive bodybuilding. That's key. And the biggest thing is sacrifice.
Yeah.
I would say the biggest thing that separates the two is sacrifice. Anybody can, go to the gym and turn up and eat a meal plan and get semi good results.
Hmm. Hmm.
But then it is your top end, your higher echelon competitors that sacrifice a lot: time, social events, family, money, health to an extent. They sacrifice a lot for effectively little minimum in return, until you're a top 10 Olympian, which again, not everybody's going to do. We have to be honest about that. Not everybody's going to do that. But I will say that one benefit of the whole sort of scene today is with social media, it does allow people a bigger platform and opportunities to earn more money and be financially set, rather than such a big sacrifice for things that are unachievable.
Yeah. Also, as well, you know, when I first was competing, you used to get these big trophies. Like
Oh,
I've
massive, yeah.
and I've been given like a bunch of flowers, massive pot of whey, like all this stuff. I mean, in the last competitive season, like, you know, it could be just one of the shows. I got like a plastic, you know, and you're putting your life at risk for that, as it were.
Yeah.
You push. You know, there is a difference to getting lean and stage lean. Again, it's like it's going to be down to what your coach is getting you to do and what your aspirations are, and what you're willing to do as well. Because, you know, are you willing to literally stick to that plan to the letter? Have you ever cheated on your diet during preps?
Yeah, so it was, well, I can't say, well, it was cheating. When I look back at it now, it was cheating. But so the first three preps I did, I didn't have a coach.
Okay, so you did it on your
Okay.
own.
Yeah,
Whoa.
yeah. So it was, it was literally, yeah.
I'm going
Uh,
to eat less and move more.
yeah, kind of. That's how it went. So, like, my very first prep, I started on, like, each meal was like 150 grams of chicken and egg noodles.
I love this.
Oh God, wait till we carry on. So breakfast was porridge and oats.
Yep.
Um, pretty standard. Oh, porridge and whey, sorry, not porridge and oats, it's the same thing. Um, yeah, so oats and whey, everybody eats oats and whey, don't they? So that was back breakfast. And then I had 5 meals of chicken and egg noodles. So I used to count my egg noodles out per meal because
Yeah.
I didn't know any different. Because I didn't know that I had to weigh them on the scales. I literally just counted them out per meal.
in it. We do these things though.
So as I was getting closer to show, yeah,
You have less nude.
I was eating like one noodle,
No,
one
you were not.
one string of noodle,
Oh,
100
stop.
grams of chicken in like my last week before my show. It was wild, Sarah. Yeah, yeah. Well, that was it. I didn't know what to do,
I love this.
and that's how I started. You know, and then I just used to, because like at the time there was no such thing as a 24-hour gym. That wasn't a thing back then. So I used to walk around the streets in layers of clothes and hoodies and stuff, like late at night, to try and just do like an hour's fast-paced walk and sweat it out. Like that's crazy, isn't it? So yeah, that was crazy. So yeah, like there was times then when I'd have like a Kit Kat, like one bar out of a Kit Kat, and I'd think, oh, if I eat this, I'll have to do another 20 minutes, but I'm so hungry, and like I was like 19, 20 at the time, 20, like 20, yeah, I was 20. I just didn't know what I was doing. I knew nothing about nutrition. I'd literally just stopped sprinting and playing football, and it was mental. So like a Kit Kat would last me like a whole week or like 10 days. Yeah, that's wild, isn't it? With my single strip of egg noodles.
The thing is as well though, like the satiation, it hits different. Like when you can sort of gather some years in the sport, as it were, and sort of actually understand what foods hit a palate experience as well. But sometimes that includes and you might have a bit of a Kit Kat, but if you haven't had that for ages, like that can really do a lot rather than feel like you have to have loads of stuff. You can have that in moderation with things as you move through the reverse and go into your off season. And like I've appreciated the smallest of things, act like, like a bite of something or whatever when it's off
Yeah.
plan. And you can get satiation from the wildest things, but also the concoctions over the years of foods that I've eaten. Like
Oh wow, yeah. Go on. What's the weirdest thing you've ever ate?
what? I mean, I used to have mackerel, salad, sultanas, and like I'd put honey on top of it. People found that a bit weird, but I think that's quite normal. What else
See,
did I?
yeah, I don't know if that's because I'm a hardcore bodybuilder, but I think that's quite normal too.
Yeah, I think that's not like I think sometimes people think the fruit and savory is weird, but I quite like fruit and savory.
Yeah.
Mm. But I've never had like the chicken in a mixer and stuff like that. Have you?
Yeah, man, I blended that shit.
Oh, you didn't?
Yeah. Yeah. So I used to go and I used to train in Coventry when I lived in Stafford, and I was really late for my train. So I'd literally put my chicken on the George Foreman, so it was still hot when I finished it. I'd use some boiling water because I wanted to try and make it like a chicken soup. Throw my chicken in the blender because I needed carbs. I threw 100 grams of oats in there as well with some honey, and then I blended it all up.
Oh my God.
My blender wasn't powerful enough to go through 100 grams of oats, a whole chicken breast, and everything else. So it was so lumpy and it was disgusting. It was terrible. That was the worst time I'd ever blended it. I have blended it prior to that, and it's been all right. So that's not been too bad. But I think the strangest thing that I actually found was really nice, and my mum was absolutely appalled at it when I was eating it. So I got one of these big, when I talk a big mixing bowl, I mean a big mixing bowl. So I had 100 grams of oats with raisins and honey.
Okay, quite normal so far.
Yep. Mixed with 4 whole eggs, tomato sauce, and salt.
Tomato sauce.
Well, you have eggs and tomato sauce, don't you? So it was mixed as scrambled egg, and then I mixed it together with my oats in one bowl.
Like a big mass.
Yeah,
Was it? And it was nice.
yeah, it was great.
And your mum's like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
That's exactly what she said. Yeah, that is exactly what she said. Yeah.
What does your mum think of like, because obviously going from where you were as a footballer, physique wise, where you've got over the years, I'm guessing she's on board now, but was there ever times where she was like, What's going on?
So the first time I said I wanted to do a bodybuilding show, she just went, yeah, yeah, okay. Because I don't think she knew what it was.
Yeah, fine, yeah.
And none of us knew what it entailed as a prep, because this is before there was no online coaches when I started bodybuilding. Um, there was no 24-hour gyms. If you wanted to know what somebody was doing, you read a Flex magazine or Muscular Development, or you found an underground forum that was online somewhere that you had
Legit.
to sign up and put your age in that you were over 18. Like, do you know what I mean? This was wild. This was like the dark ages.
Yeah.
So, yeah, she was not taken back, but she was a little bit confused. Um, and then I started drinking her Flex magazines. So I was like, I'm going to look like this. And she was a bit like, oh, Zach, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, be sound. Take no time, that mum. Like, I go to the gym 5 times now. Have you not seen my arm? And
Yeah.
yeah, that's exactly what I was like. So the she was actually really poorly for my first show, so she couldn't actually make it. But since then, she's been to every single show I've done, including all of my abroad ones.
Whoa.
Um, all of my abroad ones, yeah. She does them all with me. She's like my best friend, my number one fan, my cheerleader.
Oh my
Um,
God.
you hear her screaming every time I'm on stage or I'm battling it out or with my posing and stuff. She's always giving me directions and that. She comes and sits backstage with me as well if we can get a coach's pass. So to say that she's supportive, I couldn't describe how supportive she is enough. She understands everything that I put into it, the time, the effort, the money. She understands the side effects and the risks as well of everything that I do as well. And she also accepts that because obviously it's my choice. But for me, it's also a career. And I think that's the big thing that a lot of people don't see from a recreational side of it as a gym, that being a I'm not there yet, but being a professional bodybuilder is my desired career. And being a top level coach is what I do already. So the two effectively go hand in hand for me. So yeah, she understands it, she loves it, she's on board with it. It's pretty much all we talk about now. We send each other like show results on Instagram. Like, have you seen this? Have you seen this? Oh, so and so's won. Oh, so and so's won this. Oh, so and so didn't place here. I wonder why. You
Oh,
know,
I love that.
like they're the conversations that we have.
Mm.
Like, so when I say that she's all in, she's all in.
It's sick when you can get that. Like, my mum doesn't understand it to that level, but she does. You know, she comes to all my shows and everything. And even with the PEDs, and this would be useful for us to talk about. With when I decided to go assisted, I actually I remember saying this on a pod once. One of my first thoughts was shit. Telling my mum that I'm going to inject. That was sort of quite a scary thought process because when I first got into bodybuilding, over 12 years ago, she said, "You're not gonna look like Jodie Marsh, are you?" That was the first thing she said,
Yeah,
and I was like, "Wow, that would be quite nice, but I don't think so, mum." Because obviously I'm doing it naturally, and I'm like,
yeah,
"Sure, this person probably uses some assistance." So then when I was making this decision, it's like I've done this for a number of years. I know it's definitely what I want to do. I personally, it excites me the use of PDs, as you know from our conversations in the gym. But this is something I wish I could sort of install into a lot of people that actually, if you get the opportunity to live like a bodybuilder first, at least, even if you can't do a prep or whatever, and you want to go assisted, it's like, do you definitely want to go down this route? Now, there's examples of people going on TRT or things like this that are outside of if you're going to compete. Like that could be just from a health standpoint. But generally speaking, if you're going to run anabolics and things like this, it's a good idea to know, of course, the side effects, what you're actually trying, what's your why, as you spoke about with competing anyway, but the people around you, because it was a hard conversation. But now, like, joking aside, I can inject in front of my mum and she doesn't think anything of it,
yeah.
which is it's a very nice. I don't feel like I'm doing something bad then, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely, yeah. And again, it was an awkward conversation I had to have with my mum as well, because so my first show was NABA. Um, again,
Back
when
in the day.
Back in the day, yeah. So again, when I first started competing, there was no first timer shows, there was no natural federations.
Yeah.
You know, you bodybuilded, you stuck your trunks on, you turned up, and you competed against however many people were there on the day,
Yeah.
and that was it. You know, the classes were a lot bigger back then because I believe there was only three federations of NABA, UK BFF, and NAC, and that
Yeah.
was it. They were the three, and that was it. And you know, for the first year I did NABA, I did one show, and that was it. The second year I did NAC, Middleton, again, one show, that was it. And the third year I did UK BFF, and so I was just averaging one show a year at this point.
Yeah.
I didn't really know what much. Again, like I said, I did all these myself. Didn't really know how to go through multiple shows. Didn't know how to feed fatigue manage, to peak properly. You know, it was just stuff that you spoke to other people about who, you know, you kind of bumped into every now and then
Yeah.
because, you
What do you
know,
think of this?
yeah, literally. Because again, bodybuilding back then, you know, wasn't that common, and it was quite common. I mean, quite uncommon to see somebody of large size or to tell that somebody competed. You know, so there wasn't mass amounts of information out there. So yeah, so the first 3 years of my competitive journey, I was natural,
Nice.
and I never won a fucking show. You know, that's just the way it is. That's just the way it was. I got beat by some guys who were great. I got beat by some guys who were on a lot of drugs. I got beat by some guys who weren't so great, but were on more drugs than me that was zero.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, and I'm not going to stand here and bitch and moan about it because that is bodybuilding and that is the way that the cookie crumbles. And like I said, there was no tested shows, everything was untested. I had the attitude that at the time and the level I was at, I didn't need PEDs.
hmm
And I still stand by that decision and it was fine. It's definitely not as fun.
It
um,
is exciting for me. Like,
yeah,
it is. Yeah.
and it's exciting for people that don't take PEDs. They don't understand when we say exciting or it's fun or this or that, because the reason we say that is because we live the lifestyle that we live. We see the changes, we notice the increments, whether it's, oh, I've gained a pound this week, okay, great. I've also added 5 kilo to my bench this week, that's great. Okay, now my chest's not as sore as it was 3 days ago. I can go back in and bench and add another 2 kilo. You know, these are things that you can't do as a natty, and that's the exciting thing, is the progress, the the process and the progress that allow us to be further. And it is because of the recovery. It's not just a case of sticking a needle in you and turning into He-Man or He-Woman. So that it's not that simple. It's everything that we live for, that we go about day by day.
And then enhance that by using the PDs, isn't it? And
Literally, yeah.
again, a good example there. You did it naturally first, and I'm glad I did, because it's almost like it was then like, what can I do with PDs? What can I explore? And it's, you look forward to, like, when I'm on an exposure, I'm like, okay, so what can I do here? Like you say, the enhanced recovery is massive for me. I think as well with the PD use, actually, you've spoken about injuries, and I've obviously got several injuries from the years of doing it. Even things like growth hormone complementing that. We spoke a bit about peptides. So there's actually like an extension as well. And for me, using fem tests, naturally, I really tanked my test, as you can imagine. So
Yeah.
actually, it's not just the case of like, oh, I want to get massive, bro. It's like, yes, that is part of it. But for me, some of the compounds I take for me are from a health standpoint as well.
Yeah, and I think this is a massive stigma now. We're going to talk about this, is females and testosterone. I think there's so much bad and ill education out there about it, that females and testosterone isn't a bad thing, but you just have to get your bloods done, read it, and understand it. But the thing is, people don't want to do that, or they don't understand it. And, some of it is down to, GPs going, oh, you don't need testosterone, you don't need testosterone. Well, I do, because mine's fucking really low, and with it being a basic, well, obviously it's a basic hormone, but it's a necessity of a hormone in males and females, not only for reproduction, but for energy, for recovery, repair, you know, every sort of growth within the human body from a cellular level uses testosterone. So, as a female, why would you not want your testosterone to be within average range, or at least functioning? Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Especially if you're going through menopause, or, whether you were inside out peeled lean, all these things that where your testosterone starts to drop and your estrogen raises. Why would you not want your testosterone there to balance it out, to stop you feeling like shit?
Yeah, it is that. It was such a big pivotal part of my decision to actually go and using thyroid medication as well. Obviously, you can push and pull that in a diet, and that's
Yeah.
often where it's used. But for me, there's a long-standing thyroid issue there. And I truly believe, so many years of just spanking preps, it does have a backlash, and it has had many, many things for me. We spoke about GI earlier, thyroid test, all of these things. Again, if your wife's strong enough, you sort of go, "This is part of the extreme nature of the sport." Yeah, and it's like, I don't know, sometimes maybe that comes across as like, "Oh," but it is like I'm you say lifeline, it's like this is my life, and I do wanna live for other things, of course I do, but pushing to the extremes, we have got a streak of narcissism within us, I believe, Zach, because,
Yeah, definitely. I'd agree with that. And I think as well, like we said earlier as well, the sacrifices that we are willing to make, that we wouldn't put onto clients or other people,
Sure.
is because our why tells us that we can be better, or our goals are bigger, and we need to sacrifice a little bit more than the next person to get us there. Whether it be because our genetics aren't quite as good as, the next up and coming superstar, or whether it because, we might not have as much time as somebody else. So we have to make other sacrifices. There's always something where you can make a sacrifice and progress past somebody else because you've made that sacrifice. Whether it be a time, a financial, or a health one, like we spoke about previously, there's a sacrifice to make. And if you want it, it's not that much of a sacrifice.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily feel like a sacrifice, does it? When you get to
No.
this point, it's like this is a cathartic, like fucking hell yeah, I'm gonna say no to X to do X or however that works. And again, mentally, it's as you say there with the lifeline, that rings true to me because it's always there. You said that like bodybuilding's always there, and it always is. Like even if I was alone in the world, I know that I could still have some purpose through the bodybuilding. And I think that we've got a listener question before we wrap up, but this feeds into what the listener asked. So A. Finch asked, "How do you handle mental issues going through?" And I think that why I don't know, whatever I face, and you maybe a good example actually that would be when you said about you've pulled out of preps because of an injury. How did that feel mentally? How did you get through those examples? Because that's tough, right?
Yeah, real bad. I mean, certain things are really bad. Again, you always, for me, in the situation I was in, and every situation I've been in since then, really, that has been bad, I can always fall back to my why, which is like a rock, like a lifeline. My why is a lifeline because multiple people have wronged me in the past. I've had multiple injuries that have taken me out of the gym for months at a time. And I mean like months. For two separate occasions, I've had 3 operations on my left shoulder and I ruptured my right quad. So both of them situations left me out of the gym for a long time. I've also fallen out with people extremely badly, which has caused long periods of stress and had to change gyms, etc. Again, not good for for progressing at all times. So mentally, it can be difficult, but when you understand why you're doing it and the reasons behind it, you always fall back to that, and they'll always get you through. And I mean, fortunately enough for me, a lot of it is always myself and my goals, because again, people come and go. So a lot of it being myself, that I always back myself, and that's mentally how I can get through it. And just prior to this, what I was going to say as well, leading about talking about sacrifices. If we were talking to a normal person and we're talking about things we do,
Mhm.
I would say this is a sacrifice that I make,
Mhm.
so they could understand it.
Yeah, yeah,
Now, if I'm talking to you, I would say it's a necessity
yeah, yeah,
because you understand it.
yeah.
So they're two separate things. It
Mhm.
depends who you're talking to. It's part about knowing your audience and seeing and empathizing to their point of view with it, because
Mhm.
you and me both know that we do loads of stupid things on prep. Well, they're not stupid, but the outside world would class them as stupid.
Think you fucking hell.
Yeah, yeah, the outside world would be like, wow, that's mind blowing, or why are they doing that, or why are they doing that, or you know, and we would be like, I'm doing this to be the best version I can be.
Literally.
I'm doing this to be as lean as I possibly can be. I can't go out and drink 5 pints at a weekend when I go and watch a football while I'm on prep. I'm there on water or cordial or diet coke with my own Tupperware, you
Mhm.
know, and I'm fine with that.
Yes, it's
Some
normal
people,
for everyone else.
yeah, some people see it as a sacrifice. We see it as a necessity, as normality,
Mhm. Mhm.
and that comes down to viewpoints.
Yeah, yeah, it
It's
is.
just understanding that. But that also leads on to going back to how do you cope mentally? Because that's a choice I've made to go out and mentally do this. I've already prepared for what's to come
Mhm.
because I've made my food. I've got my bottle of water with me. I'm going to watch the football, you know, and I've mentally chosen that's my path today.
Yeah, I love that. What a sentiment, because as well, that armed you, doesn't it? I love how you said that. So that I'm prepared to do this with the food, with the drink, etc. But I'm prepared if someone questions me, this is what I'm going to say. And that would be a really good thing for people to actually think about with the external pressures, because it's like, prepare yourself for if someone does question what you're doing.
Yeah, and that kind of it's the empathy thing, isn't it? That they would be like, "Oh, just one won't hurt. One won't hurt. You haven't got to give up this." They see it as a sacrifice,
Yeah.
and again, we're doing what's necessary to get to our goal. It's not
Mm.
everybody's goal, but it's our goal, and that's why it should be important.
Yeah, and people around you should appreciate that. It also goes with like that. I think as bodybuilders, when we're doing something away from the norm of Gen Pop, I think we feel like we should feel bad for like not doing the pints and not doing the. And actually, it's like wear that shit like a badge of honor. Like fucking rock up to that place. I'm a bodybuilder. I'm going to compete. I don't want to do that. I want to watch the football. I'm here for the memories with my chosen people to watch the football. If you've got a problem with me eating out my Tupperware, that is actually on you. That's not a reflection.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think some people are like, oh, I can't really say anything. And it's like, if you're assertive, trust me, if you're listening now, if someone questions you and you say, this is what I'm doing for my goal, can you please appreciate what I'm doing? This is my choice. People don't know what to say, do they? They're like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
You said it earlier, people just go, "Okay then." Because
yeah,
what can you can't question someone that's goal driven to excel in a sport like bodybuilding, but we get scared when we have people, particularly in the early days, you're like, "I don't want to upset anyone." And it's like, but they're upsetting you, you know?
ultimately, deep down, they are upsetting you. And I think because 9 times out of 10, when somebody says something, it's usually derogatory. It's usually because they don't understand it. And
Mhm.
it's usually probably because they can't or couldn't do it.
Yeah. Again, when we spoke about maybe people bashing bodybuilding, a lot of the time
Yeah,
they could have even been very, very successful, but can they do the multiple phases? Can they do years and years and years and years and years? And maybe it's not the right path for them, but
yeah.
it's course, respecting people that are on this path, that it's going to change their life like it changed ours, and we're going to be bodybuilders forever. Now, before we end our episode today, I have to ask you, because I ask everyone, I wonder what you're going to say. So if you could go back to when you first started out, knowing what you know now, what would you tell yourself? What would spring to mind as, and if this is someone listening, like you were when you were 19, what do you think would be a good bit of advice?
Up the trend.
I love that.
In all
Start a course as soon as possible.
that's it. Full send. Full send. What would I tell my younger self? To good advice. I mean, God, I could tell myself plenty of things, but would it
Whether
be
you'd listen.
yeah, whether I'd listen or not. Um, the best advice would probably be control your circle, because when I was younger, I thought I had a great circle, and I did. I had a great group of friends. Now I don't see them,
Yeah.
and there is a reason for that, because we have different paths in life, and you need to understand about where you want to go and what you want to do, because everybody's path is going to be different, and they're all going to either separate or cross at some point. So making sure that you, your friends, your family, and your partner, if you can be aligned, then that will take you a lot further than you would probably anticipate.
I love that. No one said that before. Look at
Ah,
you.
I'm special,
Look
me.
at you. I love that. But of course, up in the trend is the main take home
The main take home
here.
from the whole session today.
Now, I'm sure we would maybe do an episode in the future if you would come on again, because I feel like there's certainly more we could talk about.
Absolutely, yeah.
But of course, today was your journey as a competitor and a coach as well. So very, very grateful we could do this. And of course, I'm going to probably see you maybe tomorrow or next week. But
Definitely.
thank you. I mean it, because this is your time, right? So I appreciate and everything that we've spoken about in this episode. If there is people that want to reach out to you, then I'll put your Instagram handle in the description. Zac's obviously a coach. If you want to talk to him about that or anything we've discussed, then I'm sure your DMs will be open, my G.
Absolutely fantastic. They'll be there anytime.
Thank you. And of course, I will see you soon. Thank you.
Yes, much love, Sarah. I'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.